Detroiter Dave Moore remembers the councils.
Even to this day, I've never seen the unity exhibited between the blacks and the whites in this town as I saw during the Depression through the unemployment council. They shared each other's troubles. They had fun together. There was fraternization among the people. They had a common problem. Nobody had a damn thing. Nobody was working.
Those who could find work faced a series of wage cuts and production speed-ups.
Mine eyes have seen the glory of the making of the Ford. It is made under conditions that offend even the Lord. Amid a mighty hurry and amid a mad uproar, production rushes on. Hurry, hurry, hurry up, folks. Hurry, hurry, hurry up, folks. Hurry, hurry, hurry up, folks. Production rushes on.
Union organizing efforts resumed, but met with little success. Often, more than one union competed for the same members. Some employers established company unions, which they controlled. When workers struck, they were replaced, and police protected the strikebreakers, keeping production lines moving. In the face of widespread worker unrest, Congress passed President Roosevelt's New Deal legislation, putting many unemployed to work replanting trees and constructing buildings and roads. Patrick Courtney of Port Huron witnessed these accomplishments.
There was a big improvement in our community. It put a lot of young people, young families, it put them so that they'd have funds where they could live and exist.
The New Deal's Wagner Act gave legal protection to union organizing. Although many companies ignored this new law, that didn't stop workers from organizing. A new Congress of Industrial Organizations, the CIO, led by John L. Lewis, organized skilled and unskilled workers on an industrial basis instead of by craft. Competing auto unions merged to form the United Auto Workers, the UAW-CIO, and challenged General Motors, the world's largest corporation. In December of 1936, auto workers seeking union recognition occupied plants in Flint, bringing GM production to a halt.
When the boss don't talk, don't take a walk. Sit down, sit down. When the boss sees that, he'll want to chat. Sit down, sit down. Sit down, just take a seat. Sit down and rest your feet. Sit down, you've got a beat. Sit down, sit down.
Women's emergency brigades and auxiliaries confronted police and helped protect the strikers. Community groups provided food and other aid. Governor Frank Murphy dispatched the Michigan National Guard to maintain a neutral zone between sit-downers and local police. 44 days after the Flint sit-down began, General Motors agreed to recognize the UAW. Delia Parrish remembers this victory.
Golly, you gained a lot, I thought, because we had better working conditions after that, and foreman wasn't breathing down your neck all the time. It helped the whole country.
In early 1937, sit-down fever peaked in Detroit. CIO and AFL unions assisted as close to 100,000 workers staged sit-downs in Chrysler plants, dime stores and bakeries, hotels and cigar factories.
The Union is behind us, we shall not be moved. The Union is behind us, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved.
In Lansing, workers walked off their jobs, declaring a one-day labor holiday. Timber workers struck in the Upper Peninsula woods, and organizing drives were renewed among Grand Rapids furniture workers. Union membership swelled. After key victories were won in 1939 at GM and Chrysler, Michigan's largest union, the UAW, turned to organize Ford, the state's largest remaining non-union company. The large number of black workers at Ford was crucial to this campaign. Since many unions had historically excluded blacks, the UAW had to prove itself worthy of support. A Negro organizing committee was formed, and a number of black ministers and community leaders endorsed the UAW campaign. When a union walkout in April 1941 shut the massive Rouge complex in Dearborn, however, many newly recruited black workers remained on the job. But some black leaders succeeded in convincing them to join the strike, and Ford was forced to agree to a union representation election. The UAW-CIO won 70% of the votes cast, and a landmark contract was signed.
They have taken untold millions that they never toiled to earn, but without a brain and muscle, not a single wheel can turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
Michigan unions soon represented workers across the state. Chemical workers in Midland, and auto workers in Pontiac, steel workers in Monroe, and paper mill workers in Muskegon. Miners in Ironwood, and electrical workers in Benton Harbor. Furniture workers in Grand Rapids, and cereal workers in Battle Creek. Truck drivers, and thousands of other Michigan workers. George Morelli, former UAW regional director, remembers what these victories meant.
The most important thing was that we gained recognition of the fact that we were human beings and not a nameless number. It gave us tremendous lift to realize we were no longer, hey you, but mister.
Along with dignity, union workers won contracts providing job security through seniority systems, time-and-a-half pay for overtime, and grievance procedures. The course of Michigan labor, though, was altered by World War II. As factories converted to military production, unions agreed to no-strike pledges, and companies more willingly accepted unions.
It's that UAW-CIO makes the Army roll and go, turning out the jeeps and tanks and airplanes every day.
For the first time, large numbers of women and black workers gained access to better paid industrial jobs. A massive advertising campaign was launched by government and industry to convince women that they now belonged in wartime production. But black women and men often faced discrimination in hiring and on the job. They picketed for double victory in the war effort. Wartime labor shortages also affected agriculture, and Mexican-American migrants were recruited to harvest Michigan's cherries, cucumbers, and sugar beets. Former migrant worker Julian Herrera recalls how entire families were trucked north.
We traveled 1,500, 2,000 miles to find a job. Traveled straight through. 38 hours without a stop to the camps here in Michigan State. What they call a chicken coop. That's what they are, most of them, at that time.
At the war's end, the transition back to civilian production was difficult for many workers. Most Rosie the Riveters were thanked for their patriotic service and sent back to their kitchens or to low-paying jobs. A conservative political climate hindered labor's attempts to further expand its role in society. New labor laws restricted unions and outlawed public employee strikes. Government-sponsored loyalty hearings intensified rivalries between and within unions. Companies consolidated their power through multinational expansion, mergers, and increased automation. Labor responded. The AFL and CIO merged with Walter Reuther's assistance, forging a new unity. Unions organized workplaces in Ludington, Adrian, and other cities throughout the state. They won higher wages, pensions, health insurance, paid vacations, and improved safety practices. Former Steelworkers District Director Charles Younglove remembered.
The company claimed one time that I had 100 wildcat strikes in one year, And I'll always say there were never wildcat strikes. There might have been 100 safety protests. You had a lot of hot areas. And in the old days, they tell you to go in there was 1,000 waiting at the gate for you. Well, those days had to change.
Michigan unions also realized they needed to be more active in politics. Helen Berthelot, a former telephone operator and union activist, recalls.
By this time, we knew that what we could get across the bargaining table could be taken away from us by the legislature or by the administration of the state. It meant so much to have somebody that was sympathetic to the labor movement in power.
In the 1960s, Gus Scholl led labor's successful fight to redraw legislative districts on the basis of population rather than geographic size, and helped public employees gain the legal right to bargain. Teachers, police, firefighters, and many government workers could finally enjoy the economic benefits and job protections possible through union representation. Michigan unions also became actively involved in sponsoring education classes for their members, supporting local charities, and helping create the United Way. Former Muskegon factory worker Walter Campbell remembers.
We soon learned, after we got collective bargaining, that collective bargaining wasn't the sole answer to problems of workers. We had people that had problems 24 hours of the day, not just while they were working in a plant.
Black worker activists, schooled in the experiences of labor organization and strategy, advanced the movement to win civil rights in employment, housing, and in unions. Former UAW Representative Lillian Hatcher helped plan the 1963 Detroit Civil Rights Rally.
In the course of our discussions concerning the police brutality, we talked about the other inequities, the lack of jobs, the education system, the voters' rights, not only in the South, but also in Detroit and Michigan. It became not only a rally, but a march, a momentous march as well. And I would venture to say that that expression lent a good deal of momentum to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964.
That movement prompted other groups, particularly Michigan's Hispanic and Arab populations, to call attention to their workplace and community concerns. Michigan women workers, seeking to halt sex discrimination in workplaces and in unions, helped to form the Coalition of Labor Union Women in 1974. Edie Van Horn of the UAW recalls the reasons behind the founding of CLU.
Women were so frustrated because they had done all the volunteer work, had done the soup kitchens, had walked the picket lines, but when it came to have some of that power, those barriers were just unbelievable. It was a representation issue. It made us angriest because there were so few women on the staff, so few women organizers, and we knew the unbelievable importance of organizing clerical women and women entrapped in banks and insurance companies and concrete buildings across the country.
Today, Michigan workers and their unions face a challenging future and a changing economy, with new technologies, plant closings, heightened health and safety risks, and a resurgence of anti-union sentiment. Olga Beltrame, former packing house worker, believes our state's rich labor heritage can provide Michigan citizens with the strength and inspiration to build a better tomorrow.
It behooves us to open the eyes of a lot of other people for them to fight to retain a lot of these things that were fought for. The child labor laws, the workman's compensation, the unemployment compensation, not just through the ballot, but a lot of people gave their lives, died on the picket lines and what have you, for the children of our society to have a better life than we had.
We're fighting for our children, we shall not be moved. We're fighting for our children, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the waters, we shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the waters, we shall not shall not be moved. The Union is behind us, we shall not be moved. Just like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved. We're fighting for our children, we shall not be moved.